Aloha Aina, Ano Ai, Velina Kako. Welcome to Free Hawaii News, brought to you by the Koani Foundation, presenting Hawaiian perspectives on a broad range of topics and issues affecting the Hawaiian Islands, the Pacific, and the world. Your hosts for Free Hawaii News are Leon Kaulahau Siu, musician, composer, diplomat, and political analyst, and Hinaleimoana Wong, Kumu filmmaker, cultural and Hawaiian language preservationist, and community leader. And now, Free Hawaii News.
Ano ai ke aloha ia kākoa pauloa e ko Hawaii nei pai aina puni o wau no keia o Kumu Hinaleimoana Wong kalu.
And aloha, my name is Leon Kaulahau Siu. We welcome you to this episode of Free Hawaii News.
A lot of different people are attempting to jump into the discussion and even jockey for power when it comes to rebuilding Lahaina. As you would expect, this has not left a good impression with the people of Maui and specifically the people of Lahaina. To tell us more, we go now to Maui, where Lahaina resident Vicky Palafox is standing by with her mana'o. Aloha, Vicky.
Aloha, Hina. It's so nice to be here, sharing the same space with you.
We know there are a lot of different people, especially developers, who want to talk about rebuilding Lahaina, but they're not talking to the people who are actually from Lahaina. Can you tell us about that?
There was a meeting that was held on the island of Oahu with the governor. We had a lot of our people from Lahaina that went over to attend that meetings. And one of the individuals he is very well known in Lahaina, came back and said to us that all they talked about was about to the developers, about developments, and nothing to do with the people of Lahaina.
Can you describe to our viewers what Lahaina was like before foreigners arrived?
Lahaina in time past was flourishing. No, all along the mountainside was so green. The rivers, the waters flow in its natural state, brought life of different species on Aina in waters. And these flow from the mountain all the way down to the ocean, had brought life. That's why Moku'ula was our kingdom and state at that time, because of the waters that flowed from Mauka to Makai.
Could you please tell us about the role Moku'ula played for several hundred years there in Lahaina?
Moku'ula held the heart of Lahaina. That's why all of our kings and royalty dwelled there, to protect that heart, to protect that space, because it fed Lahaina, it fed Aina, so Aina can feed its people, so the people can feed the village, so that the village can grow in its foundation, so that we may multiply as Kanaka Maui. Moku'ula is the heart of Lahaina.
As you mentioned, Lahaina had been a wetland for centuries. So how did it become so arid, and where did all the water go?
Waters of Lahaina was transferred by plantation companies that was dwelling in. There was one big company that dwelt within Lahaina that diverted all its waters towards the growth of sugarcane. As they took that waters, and if you ever find how much water sugarcane takes just to grow, I wouldn't have grown sugarcane because it took more water than it needed. All this diversion that sugar plantation has done After sugarcane was stopped, they didn't stop the transfers of water. They didn't put back and clean the mess that they planted within our aina. They should have, when they move, take with them those things that they had brought and return the waters to the way they found it. That would have helped to bring Lahaina. It wouldn't have been that barren. Mokaki. They never cleaned up after themselves when they left. They didn't put things back the way they found it when they left. When they left, and they left their work that they did all those years in growing sugarcane, it dried up our land. Where were that waters going? If the sugar fields was done and over with, where was the water taken? Why was it not put back where they found it? Today, what you see of Lahaina, dried, easy to burn, because the land beneath has no more water. It was diverted. Surface water, diverted. All waters that was natural to Lahaina, diverted. When will they learn? When you go in a space and build all these things and do changes, when you leave, you need to take your opala with you. You need to return what was found back to its original state. Plantation, kapulu, mokaki, and that is why Lahaina is the way Lahaina is today. The laziness of those that had already milked our lands.
One of the biggest issues initially facing Lahaina residents is getting the flow of water that was diverted from Lahaina streams a century and a half ago to be returned. How prominent a role did the arid drylands, along with invasive grasses, play in fueling the fire? And should the restoration of Lahaina start with the restoration of Lahaina ancient streams?
These invasive plants that had come during their time has been such a nuisance. They are like fire starters. So if there was a piece of glass in between those grasses that are, let's look at Kawaula. Beautiful view, you can see everything. What do you see? Those invasive grass that wasn't there before they came. It's just like, it's just a bundle there just waiting to be ignited. And I'm sure today we understand when the county tells us, clean around your property, take away all this dryness or things that you are not using. If you don't clean your area, we're going to fine you. If you don't clean your area, your property may be at risk of having fires. Only the local people there get all these types of warning. Clean your yard, warning. Take all the dry bushes away from your home. What about developers? I don't see them cleaning the aina all along their property on the highways. That's where the fires start, right along the highway where people traverse. I don't see them outside there cleaning. I don't hear, that they're going to get fined if they don't clean up all that grass dry area. So, what is good for the people should be even more so for the developers, because that's their kuleana. Their kuleana to keep aina safe. Their kuleana just as much as we to keep the aina safe from fire. Whose Aina went burn? The biggest part. Was it Auntie Lucy's yard that started the fire? She never cleaned her fence line? Or was it Kawaula down by the park where the transformer burned? All the grass got burned. Whose Aina was that? Whose Aina, if you look at it, really started this fire? I know it wasn't my Auntie Lucy's house because she cleaned around her fence line. Because if she never cleaned, she gonna get fined. I leave that to the developers to traverse upon. Clean up your land so no more fire. Put water down and grow your beautiful, magnificent grass like the golf course. There may be no more fire. Take care of your kuleana because you asked for the lands. You need to take care of your kuleana. That is what the people of Lahaina is asking for. That is what the people of Lahaina will fight for. To heal the lands, to bring the waters back to Lahaina, because we know Ayakavai Ake Ola. Water is life. Water brings life. Water sustains life. Water is life. So to heal the lands and to heal the people, you need to return the waters from Mauka to Makai, to the state that it is or was from the beginning of time.
Olai kawai. If water is life, and water is found in life, then why would developers want to rebuild Lahaina without restoring the streams first?
Developers are creator of like a plastic surgeon. Yeah? Take this unkept land, bring in imitation things, bring in the things that will make it temporarily controllable for them and temporarily make it look like Lahaina. It's an imitation thing. It's a facade. It's something that they want it to look like. You cannot force something like that, no matter how much makeup you put on the land, how much things you bring from far away to cover all the blemishes on the land, all the scarring that has left behind. Developers only gonna come over here and turn it into, how I gonna put this, like a Disneyland. Yeah, thoughts, dream process, remold Lahaina to what we see Lahaina. It's not life. Return Lahaina to its children, to its people. They know how to give life back to Lahaina because these people are generational. They truly love their land.
Would it be accurate to say that Lahaina streams are the lifeblood of the community?
It is like the veins that flow within my body so that I am able to sit here this day and speak to you. Like the veins that flow in my body that I am sustained. Imagine if I cut my arm and the blood flow all over the place. My body cannot be sustained anymore because that vein is oki, is cut. Leave and put back what was, if it is not destroyed already by developers. Utilize the Kanaka Maoli people, for they are generational. They are the children of the adult or kupuna or makuas of time past. that took care of the land. It is in their blood. It is in their koko. The veins of vai that come from Mauka to Makai can only be managed and dealt with by the families of that space. Because those water veins are the veins of their kupuna. The love that they have for kupuna will go back in that space.
Do you think that rebuilding Lahaina the pono way, the right way, could serve as an example and possibly a template for the rest of the Pai'aina of Hawaii?
Yes, yes. I can see as the people are talking, their vision of these lands being Aina Momona. They want to put Lahaina back to Aina Momona because that's what Lahaina was. That's why it became the capital of the kingdom at that time. Because the mo'is and the chief knew that the waters from that Aina is the life and breath of all things.
No laila mahalo anui ya oe e Viki, mahalo anui no kou mamanao, a mahalo anui no ke kipa ana mai. Mahalo.
Over the last few weeks, people from all over Hawaii and throughout the world witnessed the tragedy that struck the famous and beloved town of Lahaina. We also saw the spontaneous mobilization of massive kokua from everyone, people and communities coming to help with immediate needs of the people in the immediate aftermath of the fire. It has been a very moving and deeply inspiring experience. Individuals, groups, and communities took it upon themselves to collect and deliver vital supplies of all kinds. They did not wait for the governments to act, but took the initiative to show up where help was needed, demonstrating what Hawaii is all about. To malama, to take care of each other. Here in the studios is our friend Makaio Villanueva, who was among the very first to arrive on Maui with emergency supplies from Oahu. Makaio joins us in the studio to describe what he saw. Can you tell us a little bit of background about what your first impression was, or how you heard about the tragedy, and what spurred you to action?
Well, originally, I think our initial thought on Oahu, besides being ready to organize, mobilize, and just kokua wherever it was needed, was that we had to wait for a kahea. I know for myself, I wouldn't want somebody just barging in on my space when I'm still trying to process what's happening to me. I was very hesitant, and a lot of us on Oahu were, very hesitant to just jump right on in. We wanted to make sure that our presence was wanted as well as needed. About 4 days after the disaster, we learned that we would be welcomed to have a contingency of people there, and we showed up just 4 days after the fire, and about 16 of us arrived. Yeah, about 16 of us arrived.
And supplies. You brought a lot of supplies.
Yes. Everybody brought whatever supplies that we could fit. We took Southwest Airlines, so two suitcases. Everybody just a light bag, and just packed up a few crates and whatnot of anything we could. Whatever we felt or that was being told to us that was needed, and we made our way down there. Was the area still blocked off from outsiders coming in, or even residents? Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that was one of our first challenges. We had missed our escort to go in, and in order to enter into Lahaina, you have to have a permit, a special permission.
How did you get through that?
So really, it was through the coordination of KL Moku and his team, as with the local law enforcement and planning agencies and whoever was involved in blocking off those corridors into the town.
So that's Keʻaumoku Kapu.
Keʻaumoku Kapu. He was, he was the one who got us the okay to go inside there.
Okay, Maikai. And then once you got there, I saw on YouTube you set up a tent and a lot of supplies that you guys have brought in.
I would like to just speak really quickly though about our experience being at that blockade.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
There were moments where we felt like we weren't going to be able to fulfill our own personal commitments to why we had come there. Emotionally, that was kind of turbulent for us, and that was also a center where all of these goods, all these donations were trying to get in. People were desperate to help Lahaina, and these were all people mostly from Lahaina, mostly poʻehaole or settlers, right, and visitors, but they were all lined up desperate to help and trying to get whatever they could on the trucks or vehicles that were actually heading into the town. And we had a moment where we got to load a few trucks, and I think theirs was where one of our other kuleana what became apparent, and that was to bring our ea, our oli, our mele, right, to uplift and pai in those spaces. Because in dealing with all that chaos, it's hard. Sometimes it's easy to forget why we're doing it, who we are.
Once you entered into Lahaina, tell us a little bit about that experience.
Traumatic. I can't imagine what the survivors went through. I mean, I've seen some images, a few videos, but I mean, I feel like I experienced their trauma through the parallels to my own community. Being from Waianae, I definitely see a lot of similar issues that we would experience had it happen to us.
So then, what did you do once you were there and started to set up
protocol first?
Protocol
first.
Okay, Michael.
And it was funny. It was with a team of people that were makaka. We were ready to be in these ceremonial spaces, but not all of us had been in those spaces before. So, what we felt was the most appropriate to greet the people of Lahaina was.
For some of our viewers who are not sure what you're referring to, that is asking permission to come onto the land.
Yeah, and giving our intention. What is our intention? And I used Kumuhina's second verse from Kuha'aheo, just that to say we're there to represent all of the people of the Pai'aina that want to be there to kokua. And we stand there with them.
Okay, so once the protocol was and the response was made, then you were invited to be there.
So, yeah, I think it was important that anybody that were any Hawaiians that are coming up, please consider helping out the Hawaiian communities in particular, because they're not just helping the Hawaiian community, they're helping everybody, regardless of where they're, who you are, where you come from. It's just that this is a Hawaiian issue, and I think for me, the focus kind of needs to stay on that. Right.
Tell us a little bit about the response from the people when you showed up and.
They were grateful and welcoming, but you could tell that they'd experienced a lot of tragedy. People were crying, trauma, and with all of the horror stories that we heard from firsthand accounts, there was also a lot of humanity and a lot of ea, It was, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Like we saw people rise up. We saw people practice their sovereignty and their independence. We didn't rely on the government. That was one of the most amazing things that I was witness to.
So tell me, what's your biggest takeaway from that, from the whole experience?
That the government's not gonna do it for us, and that we have to, as a community, build relationships and be prepared. If you live in a town where the dangers are present, the planning is poor, the resources aren't available, then we are just as much at risk to experience something like this as they were. And it can happen to you. I think that's one of my biggest takeaways. This shows us that no matter what your station in life, everything can be gone like that. And I don't know, when you use that when I now use that filter, I come to a lot of different conclusions when it comes to how I view life and stuff. Out of everything that I experienced, seeing the tragedy, feeling the eha of the aina and the people, it was heavy. It was so heavy. But I was able to be there and go on this trip because some random person had called and donated some money and asked me to find a friend. She said, I used to work at this place. Would you please find my friend Hawaiian Brian? I gave you guys a picture. She sends me the picture, and I said, okay. So the first day I'm asking around, just amongst the other volunteers and community members that are coming through, and nobody knows him. The next day in the morning, I asked a young lady sleeping on the street, I said, do you know Hawaiian Brian? She's like, yeah. Don't worry, he's all right. He's alive, he made it. Oh, right on. I felt like, my job is done. My job is complete. I can at least give the news that he's okay. So he shows up later on thinking that I have some money for him. And somebody's like, hey, the guy in the loincloth. He has some money for somebody. I'm like, nobody gave me money for anybody, right? And I was like, what's the guy's name? Mohoy? Oh, I don't know no Mohoy. I look over and it's Hawaiian Brian. Awesome. I said, Brian, yes, I have some money for you. Yes, I have some. Come over here. I said, would you mind if I called Pat? Pat, everybody's so worried about you, And this man's been on the streets for many years. To see the unconditional love that this manager of a property or whatever, I'm sorry, I don't know what her employment was. I just know that she had a pilina to this Hawaiian man that taught her so much about what it means to be settled in Hawaii. That even though he's on the street, that this is his aina, that his ancestors, have kuleana to that place, and so does he. The unconditional love she had for this man was infectious. And when I got her on the phone, I got them face to face, she had his sister on the line, and I got to be part of that reunification. Nobody could find him, and I happened to be the one that was able to reunite it, and that was really special for me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That was really, really special for me. Yeah, that's and beautiful. I also was able to help convince him to go back home to his family. I let him know that it's dangerous in Lahaina right now. It's toxic, and that it would be a great gift for him to go back home.
And where was he from?
And he was from Lahaina.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's from Lahaina.
Yeah. Okay, well, mahalo for that story. That is wonderful. And, I'm sure that there are many others like that. And it's good to see that. And it's good to know that things are going to be okay.
That's right.
Yeah. With people like yourself and others all around Hawaii and the world.
Mahalo.
We're now at a segment that we call the Pacific Way. That is, how do we view things as Pacific people, as Hawaiians, and how we have become so acclimated or so changed in the way of the colonizers of the United States and the Western ways. And what we're trying to do with this segment is to remind ourselves that we're Pacific Islanders and we need to start thinking in a Pacific way.
Ai, polole, mahalo Leon. I can't tell you how troubled and how hurt I feel sometimes as I sit back and I watch. And of course, the disclaimer that I put out here for our discussion is I understand that everyone who has been impacted by the devastation and the fires, loss of life, loss of home, loss of livelihood, it's understood. People are going to be agitated, people are going to be hurt, emotions are going to be high, at the highest and at the lowest. Anything can be a trigger for a range of reactions. But as I sit and I watch our Kanaka, our Lahui, Kuka and Wala'au about their sentiments on social media, it breaks my heart because our people no longer react and treat situations in the way that I'm familiar with our kupuna reacting. And I would attribute it largely to the fact that our people, even some of the most staunch of our Aloha Aina patriots, in the name of doing things for Aloha Aina, and in the name of doing things for our flag, our beloved flag, in the name of doing things of standing up for our people don't really realize how much that underneath it all, there are some clear underpinnings that I find that are very American. And the polarization of sentiments, the distrust now, and rightfully so, our people have every right to distrust, but it's so great that it's very difficult for our people to even analyze and be critical minded about what's the kulana and kuleana, what's the role and responsibility. Hawaii, if we were operating from a purely independent political situation, in context, Hawaii would need larger international friends. And we know this because we've traveled around the world. And our larger nation international friends, in the time of crises and emergency, they come in to do what they will do. They avail their resources, their time, their money, their manpower. And yet, because our people so distrust everybody and everything, that our people would now present ourselves as, no, everyone get out, stay back, stay away, instead of requiring every level of government. And of course, we have no choice. It's only going to be America. No other nation can be our friend in our time of need because we are in the clutches of the United States of America. And so I say, I'm clearly aware of just how contentious this context of our existence is, but I would refuse to support being oppositional and weaponizing this disaster and this crisis to be the launching pad, to be the spear and the shield towards reconciling our political differences, because to me it's distracting. The Kanaka, our Kanaka, have immediate needs, clearly. But Kanaka aren't the only ones living in these areas. There's all different ethnicities, and they're longtime Kama'aina families. They're also Malihini Haole families. And we're the ones that are the loudest and most prominent on social media. No other ethnicity is speaking about the things that we're doing. And it's quite dangerous because it doesn't create friends. And when we are a minor minority, right? Most of our people have run away to America. They've run away to the continental US. We are a minor minority in our own homeland. And yet, our people are not seeing that this extreme politicization of this disaster now puts us in a place where if we give the optics that we would say, no, stay away to any level of government, as much as we distrust them, that almost absolves them of any kuleana. And I believe that the United States should be held to a standard that whatever relief and support, whether it be financial, manpower, you name it, that they should be held to that. And likewise, the state and city and county should be required to do what they should do. On top of that, if everyone turns around and sues everybody and all of the institutions that are being sued go bankrupt, it has a potential effect to send all of us in ways that we just can't afford to go. It's disaster for Hawaii, but I don't think our people are seeing this. But the reason why they can't see it is because the mind has been so accustomed to thinking, moving, operating like an American mind.
I'm very glad you brought this up because this has been on my mind for a long time. And you're right, this what's happening in Lahaina is actually exacerbating the situation. And one of the things I've been advocating for a long time, there's a legal, we've begun to be thinking in terms of legal rather than aloha or diplomacy or friendship. I was having a conversation with the ambassador from Kiribati one time, and he said, he wants to get rid of the term win-win. He said, why don't we just use the term happy-happy? That is, you're not out to win or beat somebody. You're out to make both sides happy. And I thought, this is the Pacific way. This is what we have lost because we've come to think in terms of adversarial positions rather than friendly positions where you work things out. The whole idea of ho'oponopono is actually you work things out. You make things right between the two of you. You're happy, both sides happy with the results. Maybe you didn't get anything, but you're happy with it. And so I think that, again, this is very prominent or in everything that we're doing right now is this tendency to become adversarial and to become, to try to defeat the enemy, so to speak, and win over and use advantage and all this type of thing. And that's really not the way we are supposed to behave as Hawaiians or as people of the Pacific or as human beings. If we're concerned about restoring our sovereignty, we should not do it at the expense of our honor and our aloha.
Yes.
And so, this, I think, is a very, very good time to discuss this because we are being put to the test now. How are we going to respond? And we really need to respond with aloha. We need to respond with this idea that we are all in this together and that we're here to make friends. We're here to get a friendly solution or a friendly resolution to the situations that we're called upon, and our families and everything like that, and with our neighbors. We need to start thinking of making each other happy and making each other, settling this so-called disputes through ho'oponopono, to making things right between us.
Yes, I'm so thankful you said that, Leon, because I concur with you completely. And let it be said, let's speak to the elephant in the room on that. Aloha, and having too much aloha, is often what is heralded as that which caused us to be in this situation in the first place, because our people were too kind and our people didn't act in ways that we could have, would have, should have. But in this case, the context of what has happened requires us to remember this word aloha. When we take ourselves back to our true roots of this understanding, aloha doesn't know time in, time out. doesn't know check in at 8 a.m., check out at 5 p.m. It only knows stay until the job is done. Aloha knows no color nor creed. So when it comes to who's going to get help, everybody who lives in this area should be helped. Aloha knows no boundaries, not political boundaries either. And so whether it be the international friend that is the United States of America or someone else, but of course we can't have that other friend out there in the world, the United States now is required to come in. And I lament because I saw how I saw the level of response that was on the ground and all of the negative response. And no matter how we feel about our politics, this was not the time, I believe, to be so oppositional and so ugly, because it politicizes it, it weaponizes it. And it for me, it is so important to understand our politics. But this devastation and this recovery and relief needs to remain in focus. Stabilize the people. When we use the word ho'oponopono, it means to fix and make appropriate and position things so that the positionality of it creates a balance. And our community needs to find a balance. You know, when I see the United States of America and I hear the political rhetoric that goes on between Democrats and Republicans, sometimes I think that the U.S. is soon to implode. But if Hawaii doesn't be careful, Hawaii will mimic.
Or will implode with
and
it.
will implode with it. And our people need to be absolutely vigilant. If there was any reason why people have listened to you or listened to me over these years, now is the time for us to speak our thoughts unabashed and unapologetically. So I said it, and there you go.
And I look at this as a challenge for us, not a challenge, but an opportunity for us to display our aloha in a crisis like this. Just the way Queen Liliuokalani displayed her aloha at the time when she was losing her government. Still, she had the aloha.
Absolutely. And I would take it one step further and say, mahalo to those who came from the United States of America. You may have come at the time that you did, but whether you came early, on time, late, but you came and you showed up. To those who work at the state level, to those who work at city and county level, I think we see just how much our people were not prepared for this disaster. We see that no matter how much Hawaii has become little America, much to our dismay and much to our chagrin, Hawaii was still, in Lahaina, it was still a little island. And our island has been hit. And so, in order for us to restore a sense of pono, a sense of balance, we have to go back to that which can connect us, and that is the Pacific Way. And that is the word that we have, aloha. Aloha ke kai ke kai. Kokua aku, kokua mai, to help one another. Mahalo I ka mea loa'a. Be thankful for all that we have and all that we will have. Alulike, to join together, work together. Laulima, many hands make small work. These fundamental concepts that are part of who we are need to be what guides us, because we are island people. Let us not forget that we have a future to create, and we cannot allow the context of our current existence be the impediment that prevents us from getting where we could be and should be in the future. Oia vale no ko manao. Mahalo.
Mahalo. We come now to a segment about my work that I'm doing at the United Nations. Why are we at the UN? The United Nations is a country club. Its members are countries that subscribe to the UN Charter, the club's rules. It's a social and political body created to deal with matters of mutual interest and to the international community. It exists to encourage peaceful airing and settlement of disputes between countries, to advocate for self-determination for dependent nations, to provide humanitarian aid, and to promote economic development and trade. That said, like any other club, the primary reason its members are there is to look out for their own interests. The UN is a political and economic development platform. It's not a judicial body. Why is Hawaii at the UN? Hawaiians have been a significant participant at the UN and contributed to various UN bodies since the 1970s. Keopuni Hawaii, the Kuani Foundation, has had a presence at the UN for over 20 years. Although we have filed numerous formal complaints and petitions up until now, our foreign relations strategy has been primarily a public relations strategy. That is, establishing connections, telling our story, making friends, being positive and consistent. This type of relationship and credibility building requires time to develop, but in the long run will prove to be an effective way to achieve our goal of reactivating the Hawaiian Kingdom. What are our basic objectives? There are 5 main reasons we are involved with the United Nations. 1, to make certain that UN members, agencies, and organizations are aware of the United States' flagrant violations of the UN Charter, UN mandates, and the international law with regard to the people of Hawaii and the Hawaiian Kingdom. 2, to urge the UN General Assembly to review UN Resolution 1469 to discover the procedural error in the adoption of the resolution, and in so doing trigger the UN's obligation to repair the error by rescinding UN Resolution 1469. Number 3, to eventually convince the UN General Assembly to censure the United States for violations of UN mandates with respect to Hawaii, and to utilize aspects of the UN system to cause the U.S. to concede that Hawaii's right to assert its independence. Number 4, to gain access to member states of the UN, 193 countries, to enlist their participation in engendering a treaty of peace between the U.S. and the Hawaiian Kingdom, and to request their aid in rebuilding our nation. 5, to partner with and assist other unrepresented nations and peoples petitioning the UN with aspirations for independence. We are not at the UN to seek recognition from the UN or to join the UN. We are there to petition the UN to bring one of its key members, the United States of America, into compliance with UN mandates and international laws and standards regarding wrongful actions by the United States against Hawaii and its people. We're there to urge UN member states and the international community to put pressure on the UN system to stop supporting the United States' fraudulent claims to Hawaii. Who are we talking to? The avenue that has been open to us is through the United Nations human rights mechanisms based in Geneva. We are petitioning the UN General Assembly for relief with regard to the United States' false claim to the Hawaiian Islands. We are petitioning 3 main mechanisms based in Geneva under the UN Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights. First, the Human Rights Council. Second, the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And third, the independent expert for the promotion of a democratic order. Other UN bodies we have worked with to reinforce our position are the UN Expert Mechanism for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, the World Intellectual Property Organization, the Seminar on Treaties, Agreements, and other constructive arrangements, etc. And who are we talking to? While at meetings for the human rights matters, we are building relations with member states, countries of the UN. Nearly 75% of the current members of the United Nations became recognized states since the UN started in 1946. Many states, especially the newer ones, empathize with Hawaii's effort to assert our independence. Although we are working with indigenous people, racial discrimination, and other human rights mechanisms, we are not pursuing indigenous or racial rights. We are pursuing national rights. These human rights mechanisms are platforms to access discussions on broader topics through which we can trigger questions, reviews, examinations of U.S. compliance with human rights regarding Hawaii. Why human rights? It's the proverbial foot in the door. Although our issues of national sovereignty doesn't exactly fit into these human rights committee, the strategy is to ask these human rights bodies to transmit the Hawaii situation for examination by more appropriate mechanisms, such as those directly under the General Assembly in New York. We are on the verge of effecting a crossover from human rights in Geneva to national rights in New York. And what are we saying? We're pointing out that the U.S. occupation of the Hawaiian Islands violates numerous human rights, especially the denial of the Hawaiians' right to self-determination, a fundamental right in the UN Charter, and that it's urgent for the situation to be remedied. We are also pointing out that the only problem is the United States' flagrant violation of the national sovereignty of the Hawaiian Kingdom. We are invoking our rights under the law of nations, Hawaiian Kingdom treaties and conventions, the UN Charter, and the standards of international law. And who are we working with? We have a fairly broad support base in Geneva, including representatives from Alaska natives who are also working to undo the domestic state imposed on them by the U.S. in 1959. Together, we are petitioning the UN to review UN Resolution 1469 that erroneously presumes the people of Alaska and Hawaii respectively had consented to U.S. statehood. Upon exposing the actions as fraudulent, the Hawaiian Kingdom will affirm and assert its national sovereignty and continuity. Alaska will invoke the decolonization process to develop and establish its national sovereignty.
This is my opportunity to get to share my mana'o, Kumu Hina's mana'o, with you all. When it comes to the recovery of the island of Maui and all that needs to go into areas hit by the devastating fires, especially focusing on Lahaina, as a descendant of the west side of Maui, coming from the Kawahinekoa family, coming from the Pali family, I believe it is essential to empower and uplift the voices and the sentiments of the leadership on the ground, those Kanaka who are there in Lahaina and that side of the island, to not only ensure that they are at the table, but to ensure that their voices are heard. It's quite understood that life will never be the same, and it will never be as it was once in minds and the hearts and spirit of the people. However, in looking forward to what comes next, I do believe that it's important to ensure that Lahaina remains a Kanaka place, that it remains a place for Kanaka, by Kanaka, and that any development, any effort to breathe new life into this, it must be done with every consideration given to the sentiments of the Kanaka. And of course, we know that there are other Kama'aina that live there, as well as Malihini Haole who live there. Now, what's most important is that the people of Lahaina should lead the way. And for others on other islands, for any one of us who support, whether it be our families or our friends who are from this impacted area, it is critical that we uplift the voices of those whom are on the front lines, and that we not put our voices out there to supersede or to even try to replace or usurp the leadership that's on the ground there in Lahaina. But once again, it's critical that we be conscious of the way we avail ourselves and what we say and how we say. And of course, because this is my personal mana'o, I've often thought of putting my 2 cents in on my social media platforms. However, I am truly cognizant of the fact that I can't just say exactly what I think and what I feel, because it may not reflect the sentiments, it may not reflect the views and the perspectives of those people who are on the ground. So for our community out there, may I lend this voice of support to you all. E nā Kanaka, e nā Kama'aina, e nā malihini haole a oko e noho nei I Lahaina. The voices of our Lahui Kanaka, our Oiwi, should lead the way, and everyone else will hopefully not only be in tow, but ideally our Kanaka should be cognizant of everyone else living there, but also for you who live in our own homeland, for you who live here in Hawaii and you come from a different homeland, we look to you for your support and for empowering the Kanaka voices to help define and reinstate Lahaina to a place that is home not only to Kanaka, but to everyone else. But clearly it must be led and guided by Kanaka. That is Kumu Hina's mana'o for this section of our program this evening. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui for joining us here on this episode of Free Hawaii News. We want to thank all of our guests and our people who contributed to the making of this wonderful episode. Mahalo nui.
Ai no leile ke anaina o ko I kipa mai nei. Mahalo anu ia o ko ke hui ana. A hui ho kako.
Aloha.
We hope you enjoyed this month's episode of Free Hawaii News. Mahalo for watching. There's a new show every month, so this program will air several more times this month. You can view it anytime on Olelo's on-demand site or on YouTube. See you next time. Ahui ho, aloha aina.
The Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.